Thank you for joining us for Is Custom Textbook Publishing Right for You? Presented by Rebecca Painter. Rebecca is the Associate Director of Editorial for the University of Arizona Global Campus, where she leads content development and acquisitions for the university's custom textbook publishing team. She has more than 12 years of experience in publishing college-level digital textbooks and guiding authors and subject matter experts, writing content, navigating, editing, peer review, and developing ancillaries. Hello, Rebecca.
Thanks so much, Sierra. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really good to be here with all of you. I've really enjoyed the conference today, and it's always good to be with the TAA. I'm just like, my internet's been a little wonky today, so just a warning. I'm on my phone audio, so hopefully you don't lose anything. But as Sierra said, I'm Rebecca Painter. I'm the Associate Director for the editorial team at the University of Arizona Global Campus, or UAGC. And for those of you who don't know, UAGC is an online university that is part of the University of Arizona ecosystem, and the editorial team refers to our college textbook publishing group. So this is a screenshot of just a small portion of titles that we've developed over the last decade. The undergraduate courses at UAGC are 5 weeks in length, which is not a lot of time for students to read a traditional textbook in full. So my team works with faculty and other subject matter experts to better meet student needs while providing a source of revenue and price control to the university, and potentially creating books that can meet unmet needs out in the broader market. I say all this not to be a UAGC commercial, but to give you an idea of the perspective on custom publishing that I'm bringing to the table today. So the question we're trying to answer today is custom textbook publishing right for you? And in order to begin to answer that question, we'll go through a series of questions today that you can ask yourself as you contemplate a custom publishing journey. First, why do I want a custom textbook? Why don't I want a custom textbook? What approach do I want to take? What do I want the end product to be? How much support will I need? What's in it for me? And finally, how will I measure success? So before I get started, I love to get a sense of who I'm talking to today. Sierra's gonna launch a poll, and if you could just let me know, who are you and what brings you here today? Just give some people some time to respond. I don't know if folks can see the results or if that has to be shared, but it looks like we've got some published textbook authors in the room, some folks interested in publishing a custom textbook. It looks like the majority are actually interested in custom publishing as an alternative to what you've got now. And then a couple of people who are kind of fall in that other category. Okay. Yeah, Sierra, do you want to share maybe share the results, or I don't remember what buttons, what buttons are there.
Here we go. I just had to click end, okay, and then I could share it.
Yeah. And then I think if you hit, I guess I can maybe hit them. I think there's a share results button, and then obviously very well versed in in Zoom polls here. Okay, well, thank you all. That's all really helpful. Oh, it didn't share. Well, okay. About half of you are interested in custom publishing as an alternative to traditional models. So great. Well, thank you for participating, indulging me in that. I hope I'll be able to answer your questions today. I'm well aware that the custom textbook publishing landscape is broad and varied. So my hope today is to give you a high-level overview and just help you begin to think through the questions you'll want to begin to ask yourself. So the first question you'll want to ask yourself is, why do I want a custom textbook? I'm going to spend the most time here during my presentation because I think it ends up being the most important question you'll ask yourself. Creating a textbook can be a really big commitment, and it's important to keep your why at the front of your mind so you don't get lost in all the details and decision making. So what are your objectives with this project? What problem are you trying to solve? Let's talk through some of those possibilities. You might want a custom textbook because you want to create a resource that better aligns with your course. Speaking as a custom publisher, it is ideal for us if the course drives the textbook rather than the other way around. What does this mean in practice? You might be addressing organization. Sometimes just assigning chapters out of order doesn't cut it. It can be more convenient and more logical for students when their book follows the order of the course. But more importantly, you might be trying to tell a story or help your students make connections in a certain way based on how you've organized your course, and you want the book to do the same. You might be addressing coverage, whether you're looking to fill a gap or cut material that you don't cover. You might have kind of a niche course or field of study that might not have a corresponding textbook. And as an example, at UAGC, we have a capstone general education course that is designed to help students tease out the key themes of their general education and integrate what they've learned. The faculty in this case wanted a guidebook that would accompany students through their major project, but also serve as a reference for personal, professional, and academic context. And we worked closely with them as an author to make that vision a reality. You might want to create a resource that better aligns with your students. We hear constantly that students don't read. Books are too long or dense or uninteresting. And good learning design dictates that content be personalized, brief, and engaging. Your students may also need the material framed in a different way or pitched at a different level. And a custom product can help you with all of these things. At UAGC, we have a bachelor's program in human resource management, and students need to have some exposure to business and employment law, but certainly not at the level or depth that a traditional textbook would approach this material, or traditional law textbook would approach this material. So in this case, we created a textbook, Introduction to Employment Law by Gwen Sequist, that focused on the essential concepts and took a very applied approach for an HR professional. And a big thank you to the TAA for recognizing Gwen's work here. You might want to create a more affordable option. Students value affordability above all else in their learning resources. That's something we all hear a lot. But between the used book market and the rise in custom publishing and open educational resources, traditional publishers are having to maintain higher prices, revise more frequently, promote digital subscriptions, rentals, a lot of things we've been talking about this weekend, inclusive access, and otherwise adjust their model to keep making a profit. So turning to custom publishing can enable you to step out of this fray to a certain degree and select only the content you need, which may help you keep costs down. Students also want to feel like they're getting good value for money, and a custom option can help you ensure that their course readings are directly relevant to their studies, their assignments, and their success in the course. You might want a custom textbook because you might be trying to make the learning material more convenient or more accessible for your students. This might involve trying to house all your resources in one container or one location so students don't have to go to different sites or purchase more than one resource. This might involve ensuring your resource is in a format or multiple formats that your students can use. You might have had a book on the brain for a long time and you're wanting to make it a reality, and the custom textbook publishing route is how you're going to do that. And finally, you might be interested in a custom option because you're interested in supporting your own professional development, developing a brand, or just having an additional stream of income. I think it's rare that these are the primary motivators for people who get into textbook writing and publishing, but it's a legitimate reason. Most of my authors are from other institutions, and they're not UAGC faculty. And while none of them have complained about having additional funds in their pocket, for many of them, it's not about that. Some of them just like writing. Some of them have told me that writing a textbook for us has really helped them refine their teaching. So just as it's important to know why you do want a custom textbook, it's just as important to know why you don't want a custom textbook. Custom publishing is not for everyone. You might want to have a lot of flexibility with your course, for example. We encounter this at UAGC a lot. Whenever the course changes significantly, we often have to make significant changes to the book. With an off-the-shelf solution that is designed to appeal to as many instructors as possible, it's a little easier to make adjustments on the fly. You might like having a lot of supplemental ancillary materials. With a custom product, you are responsible for creating or sourcing the assessments, the video, the instructor manual, and so on. And you might want to have a robust selection or digital platform that a traditional publisher will have the resources to provide. You might not want to go the custom route because you don't have time or energy. Creating a custom resource requires some advanced planning. At UAGC, we usually need at least 8 to 12 months to develop or update a title, and you might need something for the fall. And as we'll get into, creating or even curating resources can be a big undertaking. You will need the time and the stamina to make a multitude of decisions, and you'll need to be willing to be responsible for the updates and corrections after a title is published. Okay, so you've decided that you do, in fact, want to pursue a custom title. The next question is, what approach do you want to take? And here, I mean, do you want to use or adapt existing content, or do you want to create your own content? And in order to answer these questions, you need to know what content already exists. How much is out there? How much content do you already have through lesson plans or assessments or course guides or syllabi? This can make a big difference as far as which approach you choose. So if you're adapting, that means you're taking existing content and repurposing, remixing, and maybe even rewriting content. This could be a publisher's existing content, open educational resources, or even your own content or your institution's content. McGraw-Hill calls this yours, theirs, and ours on their website. And while McGraw-Hill is using this phrase to refer to an all-of-the-above approach that encompasses courseware, which is certainly an option, I will be using this framework to talk about each of these options in isolation, starting from the bottom. So ours, this has been the traditional approach for decades to custom publishing and often involves working with a publisher's representative or editorial team to curate the content you want. Something that has emerged in the last decade or so is a centralized repository where publishers are a little more hands-off, and you can search an online library to select and order the content you want. Something to keep in mind if you're working with a publisher, that they'll want to know how many students you expect to adopt a custom book, and they might require a minimum adoption to assure that they can make a profit. So theirs, you could opt to source existing content from multiple publishers instead of just one publisher, which will involve getting permission from those rights holders. You could also source from OER, or Open Educational Resources. And if you go the OER route, it's important to conduct a full assessment of what exists, whether and how you're allowed to use it, and how it will be updated in the future. You'll want to know if there's full coverage of the topics you're looking for, if that content is of good quality and current, and importantly, what kind of license is attached. Some licenses restrict the amount of mixing allowed or require that you share the final product, which might complicate things if you're mixing with publishers' existing content. I read one paper where the professor planned to go the OER route, but then realized there just wasn't enough quality content out there that fit their discipline, and then they had to look into licensing more material than expected. Okay, yours. This is where we're starting to get a little more into creation rather than adaptation. Some publishers are offering to take content that you've already developed for your courses and polish it into a product, often mixing in other content. But when I think of creating rather than adapting, I'm thinking of publishing your own work on a book length scale. And that isn't to say that one approach is better than the other, but they're different types of work. So the large traditional publishers are just not developing a lot of new titles these days. And this is where a lot of smaller publishers and custom publishers have stepped in. These publishers typically offer a suite of consultative services and can facilitate self-publishing for educational purposes. You'll see on my slide just several of the companies that I'm aware of, And this obviously doesn't include the many, many, many self-publishing tools, the digital self-publishing tools that are out there already. So as an aside here, I mentioned that your custom title might include content you've already developed for your courses, but these custom publishers might also be a good option if you have a book that your publisher isn't planning to revise. So there are authors who have asked for the rights back and taken the book to one of these publishers to keep their book active and on the market. So you've assessed what content you have available or want to create, and now you need to ask yourself, what do I want the end product to be? Again, understanding your why will help you answer this question, but fundamentally, understanding your students will help you answer this question. How do your students access content currently? What format or platform are they using or will they use and find most accessible? Is it print? Is it digital? Is it mobile? Is it audio? Does it matter to you if your book is in color or a two-color, like four color or two-color option? If you're going with a digital option, what reading and engagement tools are important to you or your students? Most platforms now include the ability for students to take notes, highlight material, conduct word searches in their ebooks. Some platforms give students the option to print, although there may be limitations on how much they can print. Some platforms can embed workbook activities, interactive elements, assessments, videos, links, audio, and there are some that include back-end analytics to help you understand how your students are engaging with your material. I completely understand that this is very overwhelming. So this is where I encourage you to revisit your why. Again, what are your key objectives? And then everything else can just be icing on the cake. Okay, you've made a lot of decisions up to this point, and now you need to turn your vision into reality. How much support do you think you're going to need? Or in other words, how much are you willing to do on your own? This slide isn't intended to be exhaustive, but it's something that I show to just give people a sense of all the people who can be involved in content creation and where you might need additional support. If you're adapting content, you might need someone to help you find and curate that content. You might need someone to help with scanning or transcribing or reformatting all of the content you decide to use. And this can be very tedious and time-consuming without some level of teamwork and support. If you're creating content, you might need a development editor to help review and edit your content for concision, clarity, cohesion, and coherence. You might need someone to help you gather feedback. Many of you likely know that peer review is a pillar of textbook development, and the editorial team spend a significant amount of time recruiting reviewers and compiling that feedback for authors. And then this is, again, where a development editor can play a critical role in helping an author sift through that feedback, as it can be very overwhelming to receive and know how to respond to so much feedback at once. So whether you're creating or adapting, you might also need someone to help you with copyright research and clearance, like a permissions editor. This could involve text content you'll be repurposing, or photos or figures from other sources. I will just note here that a permissions editor is incredibly valuable in helping you ensure you're not infringing on anyone's copyright and that your work will be above reproach once it's published. You might need a whole host of production services. If your art skills are anything like mine, you'll need someone to create original illustrations or figures. You'll need a copy editor and proofreader to focus on grammar, punctuation, and style, and catching those last errors in your final product. You'll need someone to create the actual book. And so this can include pagination, composition, coding, depending whether it's a print or digital product. You might want an ISBN. You might need assistance with creating front matter, table of contents, title page, acknowledgements, or you might need help with creating back matter, which can include glossary, references, index. These production services can help you achieve what I've heard described as a quote unquote bookishness. So in other words, making your title really feel like a professionally produced book. And finally, distribution. Going through an established provider means that your content will reach a broader audience if that's something that you're interested in. I know marketing is a really big challenge for folks who choose the self-publishing route. So publishers usually have established channels, and they might be interested even in licensing your content to other content providers, which could broaden your reach further. But don't get me wrong; these are all things that you can do on your own. It's not rocket science or anything, but it can be a lot for one person to take on, especially if you're a full-time or even part-time academic. So you'll want to consider the amount of support you want when taking on a custom project. What's in it for me? This might seem a bit like a mercenary question, but it's good to ask if you're looking to get anything out of this. Do you want recognition? Do you have your institution's support for your project? How important is it to you to be compensated? How much do you want? And how do you want to be compensated? There are grants out there that will provide you with some funding to write a textbook, while a publisher will likely offer you some sort of royalty agreement or upfront fee. Again, none of these are key motivators, but they can influence how you decide to approach your project and who you decide to work with, and how you decide to price or sell your work. And last, but certainly not least, how will you measure success? This gets back to your why. If you know what your goals are, then you'll be better able to know whether you've accomplished them. But this also gets at something that I'm still working on. We don't have great ways to measure the efficacy of our learning materials. At UAGC, we've had anecdotal qualitative feedback, including feedback from students who have taken courses before we've added a custom title, maybe not done so well, and then taken those courses again after we've added a custom title and commented on how much they enjoy using customized, more streamlined materials. So we love hearing that, obviously, but it would be great to have more data. And I've really enjoyed the few papers I've read where professors have surveyed their students before and after implementing a custom textbook. So there you have it. This really just scratches the surface of all the questions that will come up in a custom publishing journey, but I hope it clarifies at least some of the big questions you'll want to ask yourself. So if you're considering custom publishing, I hope you'll focus on your why in order to clarify your approach, your desired end product, and the partners you choose. So I'm going to leave you today with just an excerpt from my team's mission statement. We believe that high quality, effective, customized content is a powerful tool that can help create an inspiring, supportive environment for students and faculty alike. I believe that textbooks and custom publishing as one part of that can be a way of caring for students and empowering them toward future success. And I believe there's a lot of opportunity in custom textbook publishing as we strive for more personalized, relevant, and affordable education. So with that, thank you all for listening. Thanks to TAA for organizing such a great conference and for providing this opportunity to speak. I've included a reference for the one citation in my deck, but otherwise, I'd be happy to take any questions, hear what you all are thinking, or otherwise connect offline.
If you have a question for Rebecca, please raise your virtual hand. You can also type your question in the chat and I'll read those to her. Sorry if there's background noise. It just started storming really bad here. So,
Oh, no.
so Dion, it's okay. Dion asked if your PowerPoint is accessible.
Is my PowerPoint accessible? Meaning accessible, like as in whether I will send it out later or whether it's ADA compliant.
Will you be sending it out later?
Oh, yes, I'm happy to do that. I was like, I just have universal design and DEI on the brain after going to all these great sessions. So I'm like, oh, what a question. Thank you. Yeah, no, I'm happy to send it out.
Email, or you're sending it to TAA?
I have no idea, actually. I didn't actually confer with anybody about, but I can maybe touch base with someone with TAA to find out how I would go about doing that for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Cheval asked what grants exist outside of educational organizations, because grants offered through your own institution. Sorry, it's really loud in the background. It's very loud for me. I'm sorry. Offered through your own institution have the caveat the institution owns your work.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I don't, the short answer is I don't know, Cheval. It's a really good point. I have seen, I think some states may have some grants available, but I haven't actually looked into what strings might be attached, but that's a really excellent point.
And then Dave asked, have you seen any models or examples of more than one version of a customized textbook used for a course?
Have I seen models in more than one version of a customized textbook? Dave, I might need you to clarify a bit, or maybe elaborate. Are you thinking? Are you saying that have we created a book that has been applicable to other courses outside of the target course that we've created it for?
And Dave, feel free to unmute too if you want to and answer and like elaborate. Oh, he said clarifying, if education is not a one size fits all, it's all students are unique.
Yeah, that's a really big challenge with any custom work, right? And so we do rely on, I think this gets back to the textbook is intended to be a tool. It's not intended to be a replacement for the professor in the course. I will say that one of the things we hope to do at UAGC is we're trying to address a problem, right? There's a course where a textbook just doesn't meet the needs of that course, and so we create custom work to try and address that need. And we do have a hope, right, that the problems that that course is experiencing are not isolated to that course. And we have had adoptions outside of UAGC where other either through reviewers who have been excited about the textbook after, this is pretty common in textbook publishing, right? The reviewer gets excited about the textbook as they're reviewing the manuscript and then ask about adopting it. Sometimes the professor who's writing it wants to use the textbook in their own course at their own institution. So we've had that happen as well. We've had some authors who have taken upon themselves to go out and do some of that marketing themselves, where we usually provide them with a sales flyer, and then they will when they go to conferences, they'll distribute that flyer, or we provide some print books for them to give out desk copies, and some folks have been excited about that option there. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question. I'm sorry.
We are almost out of time, so any other questions, feel free to email Rebecca, reach out to her, and thank you, Rebecca, and thank you all for participating in the session.